To get the site of the Hard Rock Hotel collapse a historical designation.
As Tan Trung reports, the New Orleans City Council is taking the initial step as questions remain about what will happen with the property.
Since the deadly collapse of the Hard Rock Hotel in 2019, few people seem to know what will come of this now empty lot.
There's, rumblings and things like that, but we don't. But what we do know is that moving forward, we want to be incredibly careful with this site.
While its future is cloudy, its past includes being home to the old Woolworths building. In 1960, local college students staged the first lunch counter sit-in protest in New Orleans, demonstrating against segregation.
In African American families and communities, especially when you look at the history of this city, this location is legendary.
On Thursday, the New Orleans City Council voted to have a commission study the possibility of 1031 Canal Street getting a designation of a historical landmark. Council Vice President J.P. Morrell says the property should have been deemed historic long before demolition began on the original building in 2014. Historic landmarks in New Orleans fall under strict building requirements, something Morrell says could have prevented the 2019 collapse, sparing the lives of the 3 construction workers killed.
And had this designation been in place years ago, then there never would have been a Hard Rock development, because this landmark would have been protected.
Regardless if this site will be designated as a historical one, whatever will be developed here will likely come under a ton of scrutiny.
Because of what happened, this would already be a highly scrutinized type of process for whatever would go there next, or whatever the private developer would want to put there next. But this additional step of landmarking adds even an additional layer to it as well.
It will be redeveloped, it must be. Needs to conform with what the community desires, what the community values. That means the zoning code. That means not giving it all away for top dollar of economic development.
For one preservationist, dignity, not dollars, must guide what comes next. Tan Trung, Fox 8 Local First.